Please welcome to the stage Paramount CTO Phil Weiser and Runway co-CEO Cristobal Valenzuela.
Hey everybody.
Hey everyone, it's me again.
We missed you.
Yeah, sorry, just for a few minutes, I'm back. Well, I'm really excited to be here chatting with Phil. I think Phil, we know each other for quite some years now, and there's a lot of conversations. Even yesterday, we were chatting about all of the things. Hopefully, we'll be able to chat today. I think how you've been thinking about AI and how do you think things are heading, where things are going to go.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know if you guys know, but Phil has a rock band, and he's pretty deep into music. And so
right.
It's a pretty good rock band. You should.
That's my only qualification as a creative, but we'll talk about that.
We should put a music video at some point.
I should. We had talked about me coming up and doing a couple guitar riffs, but
we should do it next time.
Next time.
But you've been there at the intersection of both technology, media, art for quite some time. You started a company, you sold that company, you work at Sony, you're at Paramount now, and you probably have seen waves of transformation come and go over time.
Yeah.
How do you think this wave of where we are right now compares to the ones you've experienced before?
Great, yeah, and first of all, thank you for letting me come and talk to you.
First.
Secondly, congratulations on all that Runway's done, and we'll talk about that a bit, because we first spoke a little over 3 years ago. I saw this opportunity, and we'll dig a bit deeper into why, for me anyway, my intuition, sensed that this was the one. But at that point, Chris had an idea and was building out some very, basic ideas around video generation, and the way the company's executed, we'll talk about it, that makes the difference in the market. So, congratulations on that. And just building on the background, just so you have some context of what I'm talking about and the perspective I'm bringing, as Chris mentioned, I've started a couple Silicon Valley internet media companies over the years, so I come at it from outside of the media industry as well as inside the media industry. And my music experience was starting the first company to sell music over the internet, which really caught the internet 1.0 wave. But then I got to go inside of a company, Sony Music, and watch them deal with it. And it was not pretty. If anyone lived through the Napster era and saw what happened inside of big companies that didn't see it coming or just resisted the change, it's not a pretty outcome. And I think that is, hopefully people are learning from those changes. But then getting to your question around this technology trend, look, I'm going to put this in the top 10 technology trends of all time. And I would even go as far as top 5. And when I say top technology trends, I mean going back to fire.
Okay, it's a good framework of reference to have.
It is. But I think it's important because we all look back and say, well, is this more like the cloud, or is it like the internet, or maybe like mobile? I think those are important, but those are all computation sub-revolutions, right? And this is really building on top of that. And I say going back to things like fire and the printing press because they have a couple of values. Those big changes rapidly decrease the cost of something that humans do. Whether it was at that point, writing things, or it was manual labor with a steam engine, this is rapidly decompressing the cost of some forms of knowledge work. The other thing is what are you externalizing? What are you making better for humans? And in this one, a lot of that knowledge work, not just being compressed, it frees us up to do more. So I think that shift is one. The other is the economic impact. There's a reason there are multi-trillion-dollar investments happening around this right now because there's a lot of people that are doing financial analysis way beyond me that see the overall impact. So I do view this, without being hypey or hyperbolic, as one of the greatest trends of all time.
Was there a moment where you felt like it was beginning to become that trend? There was it is more a continuous evolution of over time how things have react in terms of?
It was actually 10 years ago.
Okay.
Like when the basic transformer architecture was introduced, when we had models that could actually look at images and recognize them. And I actually built an AI model. I was at Hearst, and we had a lot of fashion companies. And even a little over 10 years ago, we built a model to go in and just look into our image archive and recognize brands, different styles of clothing. And when we could do that very simple bit, you could see that was going to be transformative. I actually held an AI summit at Hearst in 2017.
Wow.
And brought in all the leaders of AI at that time from Google, Amazon, and others to kind of wake up that very diverse media and information company to what's possible.
I see.
But what I didn't see was timing. That's always the hardest part. So.
Yeah. So I guess when do you know exactly when you're experimenting or testing versus now when you're like moving into production, actual value? How do you distinguish between those two things?
Well, yeah, when there's a new technology that comes in, like distinguishing what's going to be,
Right.
substantial and lasting versus what's going to be ephemeral. I look at, first of all, consumer adoption is like the best metric, but even consumer adoption can be ephemeral. So I then look, a bit deeper than that and say, well, what type of dependencies are there for broad adoption on that? And I'll go back to internet music as an example, because when the internet came, I was like, hey, we're going to sell music over the internet, democratize music creation and distribution. But I had to look at all the dependent technologies. At that point, computers could not play back an MP3 file in real time, which is like, what's that mean? They weren't powerful enough to play back an MP3 file. So you had to look at compute, storage costs, internet bandwidth, how you can compress all those dependencies to see if this was going to actually get escape velocity as a new technology trend. I think the same is true here. There was a lot of things that had to be in place, and part of it was just compute infrastructure that's happening right now. But I would say, of all the people I've met and dealt with over time, Steve Jobs was the greatest at this. Because he would sit and wait until all those dependencies lined up, and he saw a track record. There was a track record of some level of consumer adoption, a track record of some technology barriers being knocked down, and then he would come in, snap it into an amazing product and launch it. So I think we haven't gotten there yet, right? I mean, you could argue ChatGPT was that moment. I would say it's not. I mean, but there's a future in front of us where there's going to be amazing products that are that next iPhone moment.
Interesting. I guess shifting a little bit like yours, but you're a technologist at heart working in media. So you have maybe, I think of you as you have these two brains of art and science, like working together in some way. But it seems like maybe we're describing is just always tension between short-term focus of what the industry is working right now. And I think media at large is going through a major transformation, consolidation, and change. So you have this short-term, medium-term momentum, and then these long-term bets that are sometimes just hard to see. And maybe you're seeing we need to project and kind of measure and see. How do you spend your time between those two things, between what works in the industry right now or what seems to be the focus and what's ahead? Do you see them at odds or not?
I don't, but there's a couple of things you hit on there. One, when you're trying to drive long-term strategy at a big company, I use this kind of breaststroke metaphor of people that swim. You pop your head up, look where you're going, and you pull really hard. That's how I've always operated. You take that moment to get your bearings and say, what do I really believe in this moment is going to be important for the next 6 months, year, that's going to be a tack toward a 5 to 10 year trend, and then just go super deep and push. And then pop your head back up and see where you are. And sometimes that's when you kill things like Sora, right? But I had to say it. Was I the first one that did it today? See? But that's how I operate, certainly even in big companies and also in startups that I'm running, because I feel like if you're always just floating on top, you don't really get a deep intuition of what's working with your teams. So I definitely lead from the front and the back at times. But I think you have to have both if you're going to be successful in a big company or you're trying to build an emerging company. They're not at odds with one another.
Yeah.
But if you don't do the short-term work and you're not constantly building, you'll never get to the long-term vision.
Right.
And I think that's a challenge a lot of people are facing right now in the industry, particularly the larger companies. They're doing a lot of analysis. They're trying to get it right. And getting it right basically means you're going to miss the window. And I've had a lot of people talking about this. And there's been a couple of interesting quotes around just different sectors, because you listed off a bunch of different sectors. And there's a sense that the companies that get this right for their sector will own that sector. And I think that is true, because and it's not going to all happen this year. I mean, these technology trends tend to take more time than we think. I think this may not be a 20-year trend. Streaming video is a 20-year trend. I started my streaming video company in 2006. And I was betting that cable TV was going to collapse in 2011, 2012, and I was off by 5 years. But they generally take, that 20-year time frame. If you look at even compute being scaled with consumers, it was a 20-year trend. Compute use in video started in the 70s, got to scale in the 90s. This is probably going to be a 5 to 10-year window, but I'm horrible at that, so we'll see. Maybe we'll come back in 10 years and you can tell me I was brilliant or I was an
I think
idiot.
they're moving too fast. Maybe 10 years will be like 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, we just talked about this. Like even in the last, 6 months, the shift that I've seen in, primarily outside of the big companies and how people are building now is dramatic.
Yeah.
And so there's been a couple of these inflection points, over the last couple of years, but I do feel like the ability to build at scale for anyone that's non-technical is going to be a game changer.
I see. So this is a question I get asked every time I'm in your seat. So I'm happy to finally get to ask it to someone else. I'm seeing if it compares to maybe my answer, but there's a lot of questions around authorship in AI, and how do you think about the role that machines have when they create, and you as an artist as well, as a musician, how do you think about the role of having this creative, insane systems that can work alongside you and sometimes create entire pieces for you? Where's the balance between human authorship and machine authorship?
I would just challenge it. Is the machine forcing you to make bad content? No, right? So if it's not forcing you to make bad content, you still got creative license, right? You still got the ability to use those tools and technologies to take your vision and realize that in whatever medium you choose to realize it in. So I think this idea of it's taking over a creative process, I don't really buy that. Now I can see the threat and the fear of people that are kind of creative adjacent, that are doing things that help get a vision all the way to some format that is monetizable, exploitable, consumable. But someone like me, and I'll just again related to how I think about music, it's all up in here. It's my imagination and that vision that I think is where all the great things happen, and then the rest of it is a process to bring it to life, which is incredibly important, because if it's just in your head, it was a great dream you had, but it didn't turn into impact anybody. But I feel like this is such an exciting moment for people that have creative license to realize that, and it kind of ties back to the days of music when artists were freed from going to a big record label and needing to use their studio, needing to use their distribution to reach their fans. We're at this incredible, exciting moment with those that have those ideas and visions will actually be accelerated. And that may threaten the world order of the creative community in the media industry, but that's okay. We'll figure it out.
But I guess on that point, on people that might feel it's more skeptical threat, and my sense is that a lot of times you get to work with amazing people in amazing industries with really creative folks, but they're a bit stuck to their system, to the way the world works, and this is a little bit of what I provoke here. It's the world is really changing in the way we've done things, just full stop, right? And so you need to change your mind, your mental model. How do you bring people along? Because one argument could be well, we're not. We're gonna the industry will continue to move, but I think we should be bringing more people along.
Yeah, so in terms of driving change, so let's just think I've got a big company that I'm going into and I want to change the behaviors. You have to do that through a combination of positive and negative reinforcement. It's just basic change management at scale. But I always lead with the positive, and I never lead with the technology. I always go in with an idea of a way that somebody could do something that previously was impossible to do, and then try to get them to have an aha moment. And I think many of you have probably experienced this, where I've seen many people that were I'm not sure, I'm typing in ChatGPT, it's okay, it's better than Google search. But maybe they go hands-on with Claude Code and they build something oh shit, I didn't realize what I could do.
Right.
And I'm trying to create those aha moments for as many people as possible and get them engaged. So part of that's just making tools available and providing a lot of support. So we did that early with Runway. We went in 2-3 years ago and just made it available to anyone that wanted to use it. And we've done it with many other tools. And then we couple that with a lot of training. We create communities where we support people sharing ideas, because they're gonna trust themselves more than they trust me, going in and telling them what's possible. And then I actually listen. So I kind of view these big organizations as a little bit of a petri dish. You have inputs. The inputs is the technology. The other input is support, whether it's financial or just the license to go in and be creative. And then I examine what's working and try and amplify it. So I've always viewed it as kind of a fast follower strategy instead of a pure top-down strategy. But some companies are being very top-down, like Jack Dorsey and Block, right? We can debate whether it was AI-driven or not, but there is a school of thought that says you have to create pressure to get the change to happen. I'm not a big believer in that. I think
Why not?
I think not in the way that Jack did it, to be clear. I do think you need top-down pressure and direction to drive it, but I'm not sure that it's all just sort of economic and resource restraint to get to that outcome.
It's more change management, I guess.
Yeah, and like Google's another company is doing a great job at this, where they're just going in and directing people on how they have to use it, but then they're measuring it. And like anything you're trying to do to affect change, if you don't measure it, it's not going to really happen. So I think that measurement of adoption is something I talk to a lot of other CTO, CIO people about. Like, how do we measure what's really happening and how meaningful it is? It's not how many tokens we're consuming or how often people are logging into Copilot or some other tool. There's a more general measure in terms of business outcomes. It's not settled, but I would say top-down pressure, bottom-up support, and then measure it.
I guess on the media side, my sense is there's many different approaches to how you do that change. Some companies have gone more in like trying to like fine-tune or pre-trained models or voice-trained models, and that might be a route that only a few can do. Some others are partnering, some others are like merging or collaborating. What do you think accounts for the differences in how media is thinking about the technology at large? Is it an IP thing? Is it like a strategy thing? It's like, what makes that difference?
Well, look, I think we're all figuring it all out. Like when I went to an HPA conference a few years ago, it was all about comfy UI diagrams and how we were going to build these LoRa's and string them all together, which is still valuable, right? And now you've integrated that capability into the core system. I think everybody's just learning. Like they don't know yet. Like whether we should be going in and fine-tuning a model or even building in that new foundational model on a great set of assets, because if you're if you're a scaled media company, you've got the goods in all of the corpus of content that you have. Now, bringing that to bear on how you use that in this world, people are still figuring it out. So I don't think I wouldn't read into it that there's some deep thinking that's going on in terms of this way or that way. It's just people haven't really figured out what they should build in-house versus out-of-house and sort of where there's going to be a competitive edge.
So you mentioned like starting working on Runway almost 3 years ago. I want to ask you about the next 3 years or next 5 years. Like what excites you the most about those next 3 years?
Well, look, I think the thing that excites me is just building on what I said before, the ability to reduce the friction between someone's vision and realizing that, and then getting that vision to a consumer. That friction's continually going down. So I think that ultimately is what excites me, is that true creators are going to see that. And we're seeing, like you and others are reducing that friction on the creative side to make it easier to get a vision into a video form, a 2D video form or other forms. I do think that I'm excited to see what happens beyond 2D video. Right? And it's not just like the metaverse, and it's not just an immersive world. I don't really know what it is, but it's something like that. And I'm really excited about what world models could do to create a new form of interaction and experience that maybe isn't constrained by optics or forcing us to put these on, which is provable now. People don't like to do that unless they have to, because they can't see. But I'm excited about those new formats and new experiences and the reduction in that friction.
Yeah, it's a new medium. It's a new form. I think people, I guess related to that, if you think about yourself, like, I don't know, you're just graduating like college, you're fresh, you're coming out of like trying to find a job or do something. What would you do? Or another way is that what would the advice for yourself or many other people who are in that position right now think about this intersection of media and technology and where things stand right now with AI?
Look, I'm biased because I have always been an entrepreneur and like always, wanted to go and do my own thing.
You were very early on streaming and music back then.
Yeah, and I left school to go start a company, in Silicon Valley. It was a great story. So I'm a little biased by that sort of energy and drive, but I think this is the moment to do that, really, or be with a company that's driving at that speed, because you can go in and you can take on all the jobs. You can do anything, and I've always felt like that, and it's even more true now than it was when I had to put everything in traditional syntax to get things done. So I encourage, and I'm dealing with this. I've got 3 kids in college, And they and all of their friends and all their friends' parents are asking me, what do we do? Do I stop going to computer science? And I'm like, no, do that, but make sure that you're actually building while you're doing it, because traditional computer science curriculum is not going to get you all the way there.
Yeah.
Actually, my middle son's studying AI engineering. It's a new major, which I'm an electrical engineer, so I'm biased. It's kind of like electrical engineering with a modern twist. But it's all about building, understanding systems, understanding how to take an idea and realize that.
Yeah.
I think anyone that's in that world will be, in the exciting part of it. And I think for any young person, you should go and live in a startup for some amount of time.
Yeah, I agree. The time is now. There's no excuses.
Yeah, just the accelerator on what you're going to learn and what you're going to be capable of doing is going to be 10x going into a more siloed role inside of a bigger
Correct. Phil, I could spend like hours
I know.
talking to you and chatting about
We can
this.
get to
We only have a
everything.
few more seconds. So thank you, Phil, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you guys
Good
for
talk.
this conversation.
Thanks,
This is great.
Chris. Yeah,
All right,
thanks.
take care.